For over 2,000 years, people have wondered, was Atlantis a myth or a memory of a real place? Plato described a powerful civilization that vanished beneath the sea in a single day and night. Was it fiction, or was he preserving a distant echo of a real catastrophe? Some believe Atlantis was a moral parable, a warning against pride and hubris. Others think it may have been based on the collapse of an ancient city. Located in Greece, Mycenae was the heart of a powerful Bronze Age empire, once feared and rich. Then, around 1200 BC, it suddenly fell, along with dozens of other great cities across the Mediterranean. Fires raged, palaces crumbled, and civilization nearly died, a mystery we still struggle to explain. Some cities were lost forever, swallowed by the sea or buried by time. This collapse gave rise to tales of floods, earthquakes, and divine punishment. Was Atlantis just a symbol, or was it inspired by the real fall of Mycenaean civilization? Could the ruins of this once mighty world have sparked the greatest legend in human history? New evidence suggests that rising seas, climate shifts, and war could explain the destruction. And buried beneath the waves may still lie the clues to a forgotten world. This is not a fantasy, it's a search for truth in the ruins of myth. Welcome to the story of Mycenae, the possible reality behind the Atlantis legend, a city of kings, warriors, and gods lost to time, but not forgotten. Long before Plato, long before Rome, a mighty civilization fell and its echoes still haunt us. To find Atlantis, we must first understand the world that truly ended, and that journey begins in ancient Mycenae. Mycenae was more than a city, it was a civilization that ruled the Aegean, 1600 and 1200 BC, with fortified palaces, rich tombs, and powerful armies. Mycenae dominated Bronze Age Greece. They built Cyclopean walls, massive stone fortifications that still stand today. The Mycenaeans were traders, sailors, warriors, and kings connected across the Mediterranean. They controlled Crete after the fall of the Minoans, and likely fought in a legendary Trojan War. Their language, Linear B, is the earliest form of written Greek known to history. Mycenae was home to kings like Agamemnon, immortalized in Homer's Iliad. Gold masks, ornate weapons, and intricate pottery reveal a culture of wealth and sophistication. They had complex religious systems, monumental architecture, and international alliances. Their ships reached Egypt, Anatolia, and the Levant, spreading influence and absorbing ideas. But by 1200 BC, this shining civilization faced disaster. Its cities burned, its power vanished. The fall of Mycenae wasn't isolated. It was part of a much wider collapse across the known world. It marked the end of the Bronze Age and the beginning of a dark and forgotten era. Mycenae's glory crumbled, but its memory remained, preserved in epic tales and myths. To understand Atlantis, we must first understand how such a mighty world could disappear. Could the collapse of Mycenae explain Plato's tale of a lost civilization swallowed by the sea? The pieces are scattered, but when put together, they reveal something astonishing. A real empire, a real disaster, and a real mystery buried in the past. And perhaps a real Atlantis. By the late 13th century BC, the Mycenaean world showed signs of weakening. Trade routes became unstable, harvests failed, and internal strife increased amongst it. Palace records suggest panic, shortages, warfare, and sudden abandonment of long-settled areas. Tensions rose across the Mediterranean. Egypt, Hatti, and others reported chaos and migrations. Earthquakes rocked the Aegean, destroying cities and temples without warning. Some cities rebuilt, but only briefly before fire, famine, or invaders returned. The palatial centers, once thriving, became ruins within decades. Mycenae itself was burned, its mighty walls stood, but its people vanished. Tombs were looted, records ended, and the great artisans of the Bronze Age disappeared. This was not just decline, it was a systemic collapse across an entire region. Within a few generations, the Mediterranean's most powerful cultures were gone. The end came swiftly, violently, and almost without explanation. How does a world that advanced fall so quickly? What forces could erase cities so completely? Historians call this the Bronze Age collapse, but its true cause remains debated. Some blame earthquakes, others climate change or drought. Others point to the mysterious sea peoples, invaders from the unknown. The result was the same. Civilization vanished, leaving only legend, and from those ashes, myths were born of floods, punishments, and lost golden ages. Mycenae's fall may be history's first Atlantis' surreal collapse turned into eternal story. Its ruins are the silent witnesses of a forgotten apocalypse. Among the most mysterious elements of the collapse are the so-called Sea Peoples. Egyptian records describe these invaders as fierce warriors arriving by sea, destroying empires. They attacked Egypt, the Hittites, the Levant, and likely the Mycenaean world as well. No one knows exactly who they were: displaced tribes, mercenaries, or desperate migrants. Some believe they came from the Aegean itself, perhaps even Mycenaean refugees turned raiders. Others link them to climate disasters, fleeing famine or rising seas in their homelands. The Sea Peoples burned cities, disrupted trade, and crushed palace systems across the region. Egypt barely survived. Their attacksmen, the others, did not. The Mycenaeans may have fought them, joined them, or been destroyed by them. Their arrival marked the end of the Bronze Age and the start of a new, darker chapter. Atlantis, in Plato's account, was a seafaring empire destroyed in a single day. Could the Sea Peoples represent that mythical enemy bringing fire, water, and ruin? Or were they the survivors of the collapse, spreading stories of the world they'd lost? Either way, they were part of a disaster so great it echoes in myth to this day. The Sea Peoples remain a mystery, but their impact was catastrophic. They reshaped the ancient world and may have inspired one of its most enduring legends. As cities fell into ruin, their stories sank beneath the waves of history. Atlantis may not have been one city, but a memory of many, lost in one shared collapse. And the Sea Peoples may have carried that memory across the sea. Nature played a powerful role in the Bronze Age collapse and perhaps in the Atlantis myth. The Aegean region is seismically active, with frequent and devastating earthquakes. Archaeological evidence shows that many Mycenaean cities were shaken, then burned. Earthquakes damaged palace walls, temples, and water systems, leaving people vulnerable. Some sites show layers of destruction followed by signs of hasty rebuilding or abandonment. In addition, a major volcanic eruption at Thera centuries earlier had lasting effects. The eruption caused tsunamis, climate disruption, and cultural trauma in the region. Coastal cities may have suffered massive flooding or sea level rise in the generations that followed. Mycenae itself wasn't swallowed by water, but its collapse may reflect a wider ecological disaster. Drought and famine likely worsened, conditions fewer crops, more migrations, more chaos. Plato's Atlantis vanished beneath the sea, possibly echoing memories of coastal destruction. Some theories link Atlantis to Helak, a Greek city swallowed by an earthquake and tsunami. Others see Atlantis as a fusion of many memories: Mycenae, Thera, and Helak combined. The real collapse was not one single day, but a slow storm of disasters, wars, and migrations. It felt like the end of the world. Entire generations grew up among ruins, not riches. In that darkness, people created myths to explain what they had lost. Atlantis may not be a place, it may be a story told by survivors of fire, quakes, and sea. Mycenae's fall echoes in every flood myth, every tale of a lost golden age. Nature did not just end civilizations, it inspired the greatest legends of loss, and those legends began with real destruction. Religion played a central role in Mycenaean life, shaped by gods, rituals, and sacred symbols. Temples and shrines stood at the heart of palaces, surrounded by offerings and ceremonial spaces. They worshipped early forms of Greek gods: Poseidon, Hera, and others yet unnamed. Their rituals may have honored sea deities, sky gods, and underworld spirits. Floods, quakes, and fire were not random. They were seen as divine judgment or cosmic signs. The destruction of their world may have felt like punishment from angry gods. Sacred sites were abandoned, idols broken, and holy texts never written. Yet memories of these faiths survive, passed down in myths, names, and oral tradition. Plato's Atlantis story includes temples, rituals, and divine punishment, echoes of Mycenaean religion. Perhaps Atlantis was not a city, but a holy memory of a time when gods walked with men. The fall of Mycenae became sacred history, transformed from tragedy into myth. Their gods were forgotten, but their stories lived on through Homer, through Plato, through legend. Ancient religions leave few physical traces, but their myths become eternal. In the silence after the collapse, survivors clung to stories of past greatness and divine wrath. Over centuries, those stories grew, blending fact with fantasy, history with hope. The myths of Atlantis may be a religious memory, not a historical one. Mycenae's temples crumbled, but its spirit entered our oldest tales. Faith, like ruin, leaves deep marks visible not in stone, but in myth. Atlantis is not just a sunken city, it's the lost soul of a civilization that once believed. And that soul began in the sacred hills of Mycenae. Plato introduced the world to Atlantis in his dialogues, Timaeus and Critique. Around 360 BC he described a mighty island civilization beyond the Pillars of Hercules, rich and advanced. Atlantis was ruled by kings descended from gods, with great armies, temples, and canals. It became corrupt, proud, and unjust, so the gods punished it with a flood and earthquake. In one day and night, Atlantis vanished beneath the sea, never to be seen again. Plato claimed the story came from ancient Egyptian records passed down to Solon, a Greek sage. But many scholars believe Plato invented the story as a moral lesson about power and pride. Still, others suggest it was based on real events remembered dimly through time. Could Atlantis have been a memory of the Mycenaean collapse, reimagined centuries later? Plato's timing 9,000 years earlier may be symbolic, not literal. His descriptions echo elements of Mycenaean life: warlike kings, vast temples, natural disasters. Some argue that Plato blended real history with fiction to make his message more powerful. If so, Atlantis is not fake, it's a retelling of a very real civilizational fall. The fire, floods, and collapse of 1200 BC may have inspired the Atlantis story indirectly. What matters isn't exact geography, it's the pattern of rise, pride, and sudden destruction. Mycenae fits that pattern along with other cities lost in the same wave of collapse. Atlantis, then, is less a location and more a warning, a myth born from real trauma. Plato gave it shape, but history gave it bones. The real Atlantis may lie in ruins, not under oceans but beneath our own forgotten memory. And Mycenae might be its true heart. For centuries, Mycenae was just a name in ancient poems, its ruins forgotten and buried. That changed in the 19th century, when archaeologist Heinrich Schliemann unearthed its remains. He found massive walls, royal tombs, and golden death, masks confirming Homer's legends had truth. The Lion Gate, the treasury of Atreus, and other monuments revealed a once great civilization. Linear B tablets were later deciphered, revealing written Greek over 3,000 years old. These discoveries reshaped our view of early Greece and raised new questions. Was Mycenae the first Greece, or a separate world, now lost? Its fall was so total that even its writing system vanished for centuries. Only ruins remained until rediscovered by scholars, explorers, and dreamers. The myth of Atlantis endured in story, but Mycenae's ruins brought myth back to stone. Each wall, grave, and carving speaks of a world once great, now silent. Some buildings remain unexcavated still, hiding secrets under earth and time. New discoveries, like sunken ports and submerged roads, suggest parts of Mycenae lie underwater. Sea levels rose after the collapse, possibly covering parts of coastal infrastructure. Advanced scanning and deep-sea exploration may one day reveal more. But archaeology tells us this: Mycenae was real, powerful, and lost. Its memory inspired stories, myths, and perhaps even Atlantis. We found Troy, we found Mycenaicum, we find Atlantis too. Or have we already found it, hiding in the ruins of a forgotten Greece? Sometimes, the truth is buried in plain sight. The story of Atlantis endures because it speaks to something deep in human nature. We are fascinated by golden ages, sudden falls, and lost wisdom. Civilizations rise and fall, but we remember them in stories, not just in stone. Atlantis is not just about a lost city, it's about human fragility and forgotten greatness. The real power of myth is how it preserves emotional truths, not just historical facts. The collapse of Mycenae was so traumatic, it echoed through generations in legend. People couldn't explain why their world fell, so they told stories of gods, sins, and floods. Atlantis became a symbol, not just of destruction, but of regret. It reminds us that greatness doesn't last stand, that pride often comes before the fall. It also reflects hope, that we can learn from the past and prevent future collapses. Modern science confirms much of what ancient myth preserved: rising seas, climate shifts, war. The memory of collapse is hardwired into our collective imagination. Atlantis is one of many such myths, like Noah's flood, Deucalion, or the sinking of Lemuria. Each one preserves the same message. Humanity is vulnerable, and the earth remembers. The mind creates myths when history becomes too painful to hold directly, and over time, those myths become immortal. Atlantis may never have existed exactly as Plato said, but its truth is real, because it's the truth of Mycenae, of Thera, of every civilization that vanished in fire or sea. The mind forgets, but the myth survives, and in that myth, we remember who we once were. So was Mycenae the real Atlantis? Maybe not in location, but perhaps, in essence, it was a powerful, advanced civilization that fell suddenly, mysteriously, and violently. Its ruins inspired myth, its fall haunted memory, and its legacy shaped Greece. The story of Atlantis reflects the story of Mycenae told through the lens of trauma and legend. We may never find a single sunken island, but we've already found lost worlds beneath our feet. Atlantis is not one place, it's a symbol of many fallen civilizations remembered through myth. It lives in the ruins of Troy, in the ash of Thera, and in the buried stones of Mycenae. The sea did not need to swallow Mycenae to make it myth, it only needed to be forgotten. And in that forgetting, a new legend was born. The real Atlantis is a question, a mirror, and a warning, a reminder that even the greatest empires can fall, and that memory is what survives. Mycenae gave us gods, heroes, myths, and perhaps the seed of Atlantis itself. We still walk among its ruins, still decode its messages, still chase its ghost. The truth of Atlantis may lie not in the ocean, but in our shared human story, a story of creation, collapse, and the eternal search for meaning. Atlantis is not lost, it's within us, carried through myth and memory, and perhaps the fall of Mycenae was the first time we told that story. The story of what it means to lose everything and still remember. And in remembering, keep the legend alive forever.